Good morning. This is Kelley Hobart from Alpaca Direct, and I'm here on Technique Tuesday. And I wanted to look at a couple easy ways that we can use when we're doing color work to keep our yarns from getting tangled. First of all, every week we have a price. So for this last week, we had some comfort sock, and this is the winning color. And I wanted to show you this yarn because it's an acrylic yarn. It is not shiny at all. And it's great for babies and adults alike. Even if for people who have allergies to the natural fibers, this comfort is sock is wonderful. And we have it in DK weight and worsted weight as well. So that's great. And then what I was thinking for this week, staying on the theme of keeping your yarns from getting tangled and disorganized, I thought we could offer some choice of yarn cozies, either the purple flowers or the little cherries. And so you guys choose, and we can give the person who wins the choice that you've chosen. These are great. What they are is they're like little socks for your yarn, and you put them, stuff the yarn right into it, and it keeps your yarn from unraveling and turning into a mess as you're knitting.
They're available on our website too.
Yes, they're available on Alpaca Direct as well.
This is several people are saying hi.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to have you here.
From Colorado, Wyoming, Florida.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness gracious. That's awesome to have all of you here. Yeah, I'm here talking about color today because I started a Colorwork project, and I just wanted to give you some ideas about what I do with my color work, and maybe it'll help you keep your yarns organized as well. So I thought that was a great idea.
And tell them we have a week of spring.
Yay! We have some warmer weather, and it's so fantastic to be outside with the puppy. I've been working like a Dickens on her training, and this morning I didn't get to bring her because I was in such a hurry. I was busy knitting along, enjoying my morning, and then I went, what time is it? That's why I'm a few minutes late. It's all on me today. Let's say I love to knit and I got sucked into it and lost track of time. But it's all cool. It's all great. Yeah, I love doing colorwork projects, and it can just be very enjoyable. So you really get into it, kind of like a good book or a good puzzle. A good knitting project is fantastic and keeps you going, keeps your brain working, and you totally lose track of time. So here I am.
Ask them if they want you to bring Puppy more next week.
Yes. Would you guys like me to bring Puppy next week? You should see how tall she's getting. Oh my goodness, she's getting so tall. And I have Sandy Reeves is the trainer that we're using, and she's doing great with that. You should have seen her at the first class. She was barking away. We had to work on no bark or quiet. So we've been working on that, and I think part of it is I have another mini Aussie who's older, and she likes to bark. If she thinks there is a stranger in her house, she's got to let him know about it. And so she's teaching the puppy that. Darn. So I was looking online about puppy training, and they were talking about what do you do if your puppy is exhibiting bad behaviors? And I thought it was a great piece of advice that one of the trainers had said, well, if your puppy's exhibiting behaviors that you do not want to see, double down on your training. I'm like, yes, double down on the training, work harder. Well, she got me on my hand with her sharp little needle teeth. And she actually drew blood the other day, not on purpose. It's because I was treating all the dogs with a treat, and I was giving my one dog a treat, and she jumped sideways trying to grab the treat and got my hand instead.
So would you say that if people are struggling with their knitting, then they could double down on their knitting on that technique?
Yes, that's what I did when I started knitting. If I am having a hard time with something, I just really go into that research mode.
Double down.
And double down on my knitting techniques and really practice those. And my goal is always to memorize how to do the techniques without having to look it up. And then I don't have to bring a stitch glossary. Or if we go into a country like Brunei, when we went to Brunei, there's not a lot of internet there. And yeah, I needed to know how to do all the stitches, otherwise I'm lost. Or when you go on airline flights, when you're traveling in an airplane for a long ride and you want to be able to knit. it's always good to know how to do those stitches beforehand. So I just wanted to take a look and see. I'll just take a look, and we can take a look at the project that well, we're talking about just some simple ways that we can avoid our yarns getting tangled up. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that I think about when I'm doing projects. And then I want to show you a couple tricks that I use to keep the yarn from tangling up, and then a trick that I use if my yarn does get tangled up. So if you guys are familiar with doing colorwork projects, some of you will know these tricks, and you guys might have some great tricks too that you're going to use. First, I wanted to talk about this cake of yarn. So a lot of times when I'm doing knitting, I will draw from the inside of the cake and the outside of the cake. There is a flaw to doing that, because if your yarns get tangled up and it's in one cake, you can't separate it to untangle it. So that's something just to keep in mind if you decide to draw from the inside of a cake and the outside of the cake, that you are not going to be able to easily untangle it. Do you know what I'm saying?
So what should you
Without
do
cutting the yarn. Well, I avoid doing that. What I do is I make 2 cakes instead of 1 cake. And you can see here how my yarns are on this one little cake. They're starting to come apart. And that outer strand is it's unwinding. So that's when this little yarn cozy here, this comes in handy, because you can shove this right in here, and then you're drawing from the center of your little cake, and then this yarn cozy keeps the outside from falling apart or coming unraveled and getting caught up in your actual project. I do like to do that though. Did you see that little trick that I like to do? So what I do is I just wind it until we're almost done, until it's almost done, and then I just take my finger underneath a couple strands and grab me a piece right there. And I still keep the tail on the outside in case I need to let it loose. I don't have to try and figure out where it crossed over, because it's kind of like a slip knot, but it's not a slip knot. It's just holding your strand in place. So that's a little trick that I like to use. And another thing that I like to do, a lot of times when I'm working, I always just automatically turn to the right, okay? So then you will see this start to form. Do you see how it does that? It twists around and around like that. So you will see that. And then there is an easy fix for that. Let me show you, Jim. So I have something like that. So all I do is I grab up here on the top of the yarn where it is, and then you just have to let it unwind. So do you see how it's unwinding? This is a trick if your yarn is already tied into a mess and wound around itself. You can do that little tiny trick. Someone showed that to me when I first started colorwork, and it had been quite a while. But it would have saved me hours of manually doing that, just letting gravity work for you. So that's a little trick that I like to use if my yarn is already tangled. Now, say that I'm doing a colorwork and I have like this little hat. It has, you can see that it's already started to wind just a little bit around itself. So when we do color work, we always keep the same yarns in the same hand. So if I have my brown yarn in my left hand, I would always keep my brown yarn in my left hand. And as I need to, I can just take this yarn up and over the top of the other yarn and keep working it that way. And then we'll have a nice little project. So on here, I have some brown, and then there's some reds in there crossing over. But when I get all the way done with the knitting, this is just basic little. When you're doing color work, make sure you spread your stitches out so these floats in the back are loose. So when I go with a different color, the next color, the brown color, I just spread the stitches out, and that's how you get the nice loose floats, so you don't have that pinched look. Do you know what I mean by the pinched look, Jim? In color work, so that it lays nice and flat. Because what you don't want to do is when you're knitting your hat, is you don't want the floats to be so tight that it pulls the fabric in, and then the hat won't fit on your head. Do you know what I mean by that? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, did you see what I just did when I'm doing the color work? I take my thumb and kind of hold the things when I'm doing it so that I'm keeping those stitches separated and loose on the back so my float is not pulling, because you don't want those floats pulling at all if you can help it. Better to be looser than to be too tight. Although if you get it too loose, that you'll have you'll have a loose looking stitch, and that's not good either. So you got to play that dance in between what works for you and then what is, what works good and then what doesn't work good, and try and see what works. And the only way you can find that out, I feel like the best way for you to find that out is to do a lot of this kind of knitting. If you do a lot of color work, you'll get really good at it really fast. I don't know if you have seen any of my earlier videos, but I always tell people when they're trying the 3-2-1 rule. So do 3 projects using the new skill, and do a minimum of 2 hours a day of knitting with that project, and no more than 1 new skill at a time. Don't you think that's a good rule? It's called the 3-2-1 rule, and I kind of made it up for myself so that I could learn. Because if I got projects that if I'm doing projects and the projects are too hard for me and there are too many new skills at one time, I might not be able to finish it. And all I might do is it might be a source of frustration for me. So being able to just, do a project that has maybe 1 new skill or 2 new skills, but no more than that at any one time, and then you can enjoy it and have fun. And I'll show you this little trick. See, what I did is I put stitch markers after each repeat. So if I get off track, I will be able to tell right within this 6-stitch repeat. Otherwise, if I don't put stitch markers, I could get all the way around. I put this bigger stitch marker and I put it in pink because, I like pink for the beginning of the round because girls go first. And so I always think of it that way. And then when I'm doing these repeats, I wouldn't have to go all the way around to the beginning of the round marker to find out that I have messed it up and then have hundreds of stitches to go back and see how loose my floats are. You can see if I squish it together, they kind of make like a happy dance. See the little smiles. But
so they can see that. So show it again.
Can you see it, Jim?
Where's the smiles?
Do you see those little
Oh,
smiles?
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's just because if the stitches were blocked out and spread out, it'll be flat. But what it's not doing is it's not pulling the stitches tight and then allowing you not to be able to lay the fabric flat. Because of course, this hat has to stretch on your head. And if it's too tight or the floats are too tight, it'll look funny when you put it on your head. Or it won't fit at all. You'll have to give it away to a kid. And if you like the project enough to be able to knit it, then isn't it nice if it fits on your head?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really super nice. So I wanted to tell you a couple more tricks that I like to do when I'm doing colorwork. And this is something really simple. Like I would take this red little ball of yarn and I would put it on the right side of my lap. And then I would take the brown. Because I am holding the brown with my left hand when I'm knitting, I would put that on the left side of my lap. So the balls are not right next to each other where they could get intermingled with each other and make a mess, And so that really helps. I'm trying to think of like I said, if you're doing a multiple of colors, as you're working with one yarn, you can put it up and over. And then when you get to the other yarn and use it, you go up and over with each one. And it actually keeps your yarn so they're not tangled. That's a good way to do it too. But yeah, that's awesome. And then, like I said, also making sure that when you're doing your cake, if you're having something like this, and you're doing the inside and the outside, it might be harder. But I've done that lots of times. But if you're just learning, I don't know. It seems like it would be kind of a a frustration that you don't need,
Right.
if you know what I mean. So, yeah, getting yourself frustrated by not preparing your work before you start. I think doing that little bit of prep time. And you know what? I had put on my, for my next Facebook Live to take a look at the provisional cast on. And, but I think that this next week, Jim, do you think we should show people how to use a ball winder and Swift online,
Good.
live,
You can
for
ask
you
them.
guys to see it? Would you guys like to see that skill? Because a lot of you out there are not sure how to use a ball winder and a Swift. And I do have some tricks that I use when I'm using the ball winder and Swift that help straighten out the actual fibers on your when you're putting it onto the Swift to make it so it doesn't tangle. I mean, there's some simple little things that I've learned over the years, and it really does help. So you guys let me know if you want to see that skill next week, and then we can talk about ball winders and Swifts. Yes.
You might look at your notes, but here's a couple things people also said. They said you can knit your color work inside and out. So floats from the outside, you have to repeat it.
Oh, I've seen that before. Yeah. So one of our viewers was saying that you could knit your color work inside out to keep your floats loose. That's yeah. Yeah. So you would have your floats on the outside of your work so that when you're knitting along, you would do this. You would have your floats on the outside of work, and it just because of the nature of it being on the outside, it tends to be looser. I've seen that before. I've seen people do that, and it's a good idea. I do have a concern about very beginning knitters doing that because very beginning knitters accidentally do that without knowing, and trying to get them to learn to knit on the outside of their fabric on both halves when they're doing the magic loop method, because on magic loop method a lot of beginners will knit on the outside on the first half and on the inside on the second half. So they'll have half of their work showing up on the outside where it should be and the other half of their work showing up on the inside where it shouldn't be. And so I don't know if that's confusing for some knitters. What do you guys think about that? I just know when I've helped beginning students learn how to use the magic loop method, it's always keep that sandwich closed and work on the outside. And that's what I call it. I think of it as a sandwich with peanut butter and jelly in the center, and you're not going to stick your fingers in the peanut butter and jelly. So keep that work closed and always knit on the outside of it. I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes people get confused with that magic loop method, and so you have to use these little visual pictures of things to help them learn. So, okay, let's take a look and see who the winner of this wonderful comfort sock by Barocco is. And it is Susan Saavedra. Sorry if I crucified your name. Is it Saavedra? I'm sorry. But Susan, you won this wonderful comfort sock, and it is great. It's the nicest acrylic yarn that I have ever seen. And I really enjoy doing it, using this yarn because it looks great when it's done up and it wears very well. And it just looks like a real luxury yarn when you use it. And yet it is not natural fibers.
And that's Barocco, right?
Yes, it's by Barocco. It's 50% superfine nylon and 50% superfine acrylic.
And the winner was denim color.
Yes. Yes. So all you have to do, Susan, is give us your address and you can go to Alpaca Direct customer service and we can get this out in the mail to you so you can try it, see what you think. Maybe you can make yourself some socks or something like that for summer. And then don't forget, for all of you out there who want to vote for this next week's prize, which is the purple with flowers, or the blue with cherries. And these little yarn cozies will go out to someone next week, and they can help keep their yarns organized. So totally cool.
And ask people to spread the word, to like and subscribe.
Yes. Oh, yes. Jim said, don't forget. I always forget to say to ask you to like and subscribe for us so that we can help other people learn and we can learn from each other. and enjoy the time together, all of us. So that's totally fantastic. So yes, this next week, if I will either be taking a closer look at the provisional cast on, or I will be doing the ball winder and Swift, whatever you want. You guys just post that in the comment section, what you want, and I will listen to you and do that for next week. So I hope all of you out there are enjoying the lovely weather, and I will see you next Tuesday.